Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Wipe the PC. Many years ago, my friend Samantha worked and still works as an accountant. She wasn't a manager, but after more than 5 years at the company, she knew the ins and outs of the business better than almost anyone. In many ways, she was a manager in everything but title. Then, one day, Samantha was told she would be stepping down to a lower position, with a pay cut, for operational and restructuring reasons. In reality, her boss just wanted to replace her with his daughter. His daughter had no accounting qualifications and had never even held a job. Not in retail, not in fast food, nothing. The boss estimated it would take several months to train her, and of course Samantha was expected to do that training. What wasn't said out loud was the fact that as soon as the daughter was somewhat competent, Samantha would likely be let go. At that point she knew her days were numbered. Samantha quite reasonably refused. She told her boss, if she needs that much training, she's not fit for the job. After that, her work life became unbearable. The boss made things so miserable that she eventually had to quit for her own well-being, which worked out for the best. She had a new job in less than 2 weeks. On her last day, the boss and his daughter, now calling herself the new supervisor just to add insult to injury, stood over Samantha and demanded she wipe her company computer. Still having some sense of responsibility, even though her boss definitely didn't deserve it, Samantha asked if he was sure and whether he wanted to back up any files first. Before she could even finish her sentence, he interrupted her. Just get on with it and wipe it clean. So she shrugged and did as she was told. What the boss forgot was that years earlier he had instructed Samantha to create and manage social media accounts for the company. But because he was overly cautious and didn't want them linked to any official company emails, he told her to set them up with her own email instead. Not wanting to use her personal email, Samantha created a separate account to manage everything. About a week after she left, Samantha got a very panicked call from her former boss. His daughter had tried to log into the company's Facebook account to post some advertising for tax season, but they couldn't get in. Desperate, he asked if she still had the login details. Samantha simply said, "No, I don't have them anymore." He pressed further. He must have written them down somewhere. And that's when she delivered the best response. Yes, they were in a notepad document on the desktop of my computer. The same computer that had been wiped clean the day she left. The next story is called Do It. When I was in college, I worked as a baker for a well-known regional bagel and sandwich chain. At some point, an assistant manager transferred to my store. She was the stereotypical petty, power-tripping manager you find in these kinds of jobs. Her specialty was yelling at and berating employees in front of customers. I firmly believe she actually enjoyed publicly humiliating people. It was tolerable, until I agreed to cover a shift at the store she had transferred from. Someone there casually asked me what I thought of her. I thought I was being careful and just said, she has very high expectations that are hard for some people to meet. Understatement of the year. Well, this lovely person ran straight to her and told her what I said. That was all it took to land me at the top of her bedside. From then on, I got a series of write-ups for the most ridiculous things, like missing a few seats while mopping the floor, or not emptying a garbage can that had one paper towel in it. Luckily for me, I was one of the few employees certified to run the ovens. My opportunity for malicious compliance came one Saturday during lunchtime, when a charter bus pulled up. I'd seen this before. A bus full of people buying sandwiches is nothing, compared to the morning rush when people grab bagels for work. Barely a blip. I went to the counter to help, but Mrs. Assistant Manager yelled at me to get back into the kitchen and start baking more. I tried to tell her we were fine, but as soon as I opened my mouth, she cut me off. Be quiet, do what I told you, and don't stop baking until I say stop. When I took my certification test, I was told I had the second fastest completion time on record for the local franchise. The ovens were adjustable. I could turn up the heat to speed up the baking process. So I went back to the baking area. cranked up the oven and baked as fast as I possibly could. The ovens had 8 shelves, each holding about 48 bagels. Before long, every shelf was full, and I was only limited by how fast they could cook and how quickly I could send them up front. Meanwhile, Mrs. Assistant Manager was running the register and not paying attention to how full the bagel bins were getting. I just kept bringing out tray after tray. Eventually, the bins were overflowing, so I started filling the extra bins we kept in the back. When those filled up, I started stacking bagels on metal trays. Finally, the rush died down, and Mrs. Assistant Manager finally looked at the bagel bins. She turned to me and asked, "Is there anything still baking?" I replied, "Yep, every single shelf is full." Her face dropped. She lost it, started yelling that I was fired, until multiple people pointed out that I had done exactly what she told me to do. The store manager was called in, and pretty much everyone told the same story. Mrs. Assistant Manager had to personally back up mountains of extra bagels and drive them to all the other stores in the area so they wouldn't go to waste. Even after that, we still exceeded the allowed wastage for the day, so she got reprimanded. After that, she still yelled at people, but she was a lot more careful with her wording. The last story is called Admin Account. 15 years ago, I worked at a gas station as an opener. Because I was young and somewhat tech savvy, I also became the unofficial IT person for the 3 stores near me. I was heavily involved in setting up a new point of sale system when the 2 most successful stores switched from one gas brand to another. The company made me the super admin on all registers for ease of transition. Now, the owner's wife was not a fan of me. For the 2 years I worked there, she constantly scrutinized everything I did. The reason was that her husband had promoted me to opener, and she hated having a man in that role. Historically, every opener had been personally chosen by her, and all of them were women. But her husband fired the previous opener for theft while the 2 of us were swapping shifts, so I got a field promotion of sorts. She was never happy about it. She would call me every morning to criticize me over the most ridiculous things. "You use wet wipes around the drink machine. I want you to use paper towels and spray." We were out of paper towels, and the spray smelled like a hospital anyway. "I came into your store last night, and there were 3 rows of Snapple apple. You should probably replace 1 or 2 of those rows with a different product." The Snapple fridge was stocked by the vendor, and we had a contract saying we couldn't change it. Long story short, she was awful to me, specifically because I was a guy. But here's the fun part. I had set up their POS system. I was a super admin on their new registers, and I was already desperately looking for another job. Then I found one, a temp IT position, which actually led to a career in IT. I gave my 2 weeks notice to her husband, but I didn't tell her, because I avoided talking to her whenever possible. She found out on Tuesday of my last week and completely lost it. She gave me an absurd amount of work and ran me into the ground until 2 PM on my final Friday. Then came my moment. She personally showed up, along with an office worker, to watch me delete my account from the register. Now, I knew I was a super admin. I had been instructed to convert my account if I ever left, but she had forgotten all about that. So I thought, why not? I followed her instructions exactly, deleted my account, and then went to the other store and did the same while she watched. I moved on, started my new job, and didn't think much about it. Until about 3 weeks later. Suddenly I had a flood of missed calls, texts, and a frantic voicemail from her. Curious, I called the office worker who had been there that day to see what was going on. Turns out she couldn't change any prices on the registers when new beer and soda pricing rolled out. To make things worse, the new opener had no idea how to fix it, so they just left everything to pile up, waiting for someone to train them. A bunch of items were being sold below the correct price. Margins on cases of beer are tiny, so this was nuking their profits. After thinking it over, I finally texted her. "You asked me to do this. It's on video. We have 3 witnesses. Your trainee, my shift replacement, and the office worker, who had already quit by then." And that was that. I later found out they had to spend $6,000 to get the POS company to come back out and fix the issue. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.